Hi guys, my name is Mohan. I'm a media professional. Congrats on buying a DSLR. Now that you wanted a DSLR because you felt that those compact cameras are not something, not your cup of tea, and you wanted to upgrade to a DSLR. You have been hearing a lot about DSLRs, but let's see what a DSLR actually means. The term DSLR has emerged from SLR in film cameras, meaning single lens reflex cameras. Now, obviously, DSLR means digital single lens reflex. Now, what does digital single lens reflex mean? Well, a DSLR camera is one in which you will be able to see through the viewfinder without actually switching on the camera. Unlike all the other compact cameras where you will have to switch on, you will have to depend on the power from the battery to view the image on your LCD screens. In a DSLR, it's an optical image, so you will be able to see it directly. Not only that, the DSLR cameras give you the flexibility of changing lenses, and as you keep going ahead with photography, you will understand that changing lenses means a lot. Now, let me briefly explain how a DSLR camera works. To do this, well, I can't show you with a DSLR. Let me now explain to you how a DSLR works with this film camera. In this film camera, as you can see, we have a lens, and let me show you how the lens is removed first. Here I have removed the lens. Now what you see inside is a mirror here. This mirror is something which goes up and down. Now when you have the lens on, the light rays go and hit the mirror here, and then they are bounced up to the screen here, and then through the viewfinder you are able to see it here. To understand what a shutter means, you have to see the back of the camera. You see there is a shutter which opens and closes. Since I am using this at a very slow shutter speed, you are able to see like this. Actually, the shutter will just open and close like this. To understand how a DSLR works, as you have seen, there is a mirror here which is reflecting the image up, and you are able to see through the viewfinder. But when you release the shutter, you will see the mirror is going up, and when you see behind, the shutter is open, letting the image fall on the sensor, and that's how it is processed and sent to the memory card. And when you release the shutter, you will see the shutter is closed, and when you see here, the mirror is back. Notice carefully in the viewfinder, now you will be able to see through the viewfinder, but when the shutter release button is pressed, since the mirror goes up, the viewfinder is blanked because the image is actually falling on the sensor now. When I release it, you can see through the viewfinder. That is the reason when you use a DSLR, when you take a picture, the picture momentarily goes off the viewfinder and comes back instantly. So I guess you have briefly understood how a DSLR camera works. Well, there are some questions which have been asked by some of the people who had come to me for advice. Like, in a DSLR camera, is it necessary to remove the battery, remove the lens, put the cap and store it if you are not using it for a long time? Not necessarily. Always let the battery be inside, no harm. Ensure that it is charged once in a month at least fully. That is the first part. The second part is whether you should remove the lens and keep it. I would strictly advise you not to change the lens unless you want to change. Suppose you have a DSLR with just the kit lens, that is the 18-55 lens. In that case, don't ever change the lens at all, because every time you open the lens, and if it is a dusty atmosphere, then there is every possibility of some dust particles going and settling on the sensor surface, which can indirectly affect your image. The next thing that I want to tell you is about protecting your lens. Obviously, your lens is very expensive, and then tomorrow you may upgrade to a new camera, but you can still use your old lenses. So always protect your lenses. Now, how do I protect my lens? The first thing is, I would suggest always use what is called as this UV filter. This looks like a plain glass, but this also acts as a filter which cuts out the unwanted ultraviolet rays from reaching the surface. This also gives you another added protection to the front element of your lens. There is every possibility of any damage happening to this surface, so it is necessary that you always keep this lens surface protected. If there is a scratch or if there is any damage on this, this is indirectly going to affect your image. So we always use what is called as a UV filter. Now these UV filters are not very expensive. You do have a live view in your cameras, DSLR cameras, but then I would suggest you don't use this live view frequently because this is also going to drain your battery. So I would suggest you keep the live view off and instead use the eyepiece while using the camera. You will notice on your viewfinder there is a small dial here just next to the viewfinder. Now you will be able to rotate this dial. You see that? And you can see a plus and minus mark also there. This is something which helps you to focus the eyepiece so as to adjust to your eyesight. For example, if I am wearing spectacles and I want to view through the viewfinder, I have a problem because I can't press my eyeball against the viewfinder. So I would prefer to remove my glasses, and now I am able to see through the viewfinder clearly. While focusing the eyepiece, you have to ensure that you have to press your eyeball against the eyepiece, and then through the eyepiece you will be able to see the autofocus points which are spread all over the frame. Now while you turn the knob, you will see that these autofocus points will either get blurred or will get sharpened, and you have to fix it at the sharpest point. That is where your eye is set for this eyepiece and you can continue shooting. One small tip, while you do this, you have to aim your camera at some white surface so that it's easy for you to see those blacks which stand out. In this first lesson, we have seen some very basic things about a DSLR. In the next lesson, we'll see more on how we go about using a DSLR. Thank you.